Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, citizens of YouTube. This is Pastor Dow. I just thought I'd come in here for a moment because there's nobody that probably tries to do as much as I try to try to educate the people, especially on number one, what you call the religious front. I talk about the social front, the economic front, the political front at times, because really the political front, as far as I'm concerned, really truly doesn't have too much bearing upon my life whatsoever at all. I understand they're all stage players, they politically grandstand, and it's basically mental gymnastics that they play upon the people's minds. They never mean what they say and say what they mean, and they constantly have the people out there in a heightened sense of false hope. But this morning, I was listening to George over at New America Now, which is some other brothers and sisters of mine that I've never met before. But yet there's that spiritual connection there that I can tell that, hey, we're on the same sheet of music. Sure, we may be on, different places in the path, but no doubt. And you hear me all the time talk about democracy, how that it's a word and a term that even you listen to the protesters up there in many of these Occupy movements. They keep using this word over and over and over again. And that just lets me know how much of sheep that people really truly are. Sheep, no doubt in the Most High we're sheep because we're the sheep of his pasture. So that's a different thing when you are the sheep of his pasture. But not the sheep for these serfs here in this world, these oligarchies and these kleptocracies and these monarchies who think that we're still living in medieval times and think that they can continue to keep handling situations that's going on in the world after that same type of spirit. Because, hey, I believe wholeheartedly that you should have a spirit that anytime somebody's pushing against you, you ought to push back harder than what they're pushing against. And that's just the truth. But old George over at New America Now has made a video. And, hey, many of his videos, educational, informative. You can see that he's trying to get these people to see exactly what's going on. And I could not have explained it better myself. Matter of fact, I'm going to attach this to the end of this video because I've got permission from him. But George is trying his best to wake the people up and giving them an understanding of what is the difference between a democracy, are you following me, and a republic. If you go in my archives, you'll hear me over and over and over again trying to do, hey, I try to put a defibrillator on the people's minds to let them know that religion, the social order of today, the way you understand it, you have been had, you have been deceived, and you have been lied to. It's just like in the Matrix. But see, all I can do is just offer you the truth, nothing more and nothing less. I cannot cross that line for you. I cannot have you to love truth or embrace it. That is a decision that you have to make yourself. But know this, once you do make that decision, there's no going back. If you do go back, you're already dead in sin and trespasses. You're really truly going to be dead then. But it would be my advice that you run forth and run on and run hard. So it's my job to expose the lies of false religions. And I do that. I don't care who it is or what it is. But George does an excellent job. And I'm going to put his link down at the page because I think you need to go and subscribe to him. Over at New America Now, trying to get us to understand what was the original meaning that the people who wrote this particular Constitution right here and the amendments and the Bill of Rights and what they try to get us to understand in this country. Because if you're going to live in this country, you need to know what's going on. You need to know how people have manipulated your conscience, how they have coerced your mind to believe, and intertwine and intertwingle your conscience and your mind with nothing but lies to the point that now the lie has become the truth, and the truth we even function and act like it's the lie itself. And it's sad. It's sad the false condition that is going on. Today I received in the mail by one of my brothers and buddies up in Washington, Brother John Reed. I mean, what an offering that he sent today. And, of course, I'm going to put it in the straightway safe. And pretty soon it's going to be able to be used for the benefit of all the saints at the community here. And I thank you for it, Brother John. I thank you for your heartfelt words. I thank you for your contribution, your sacrifice that you make to make sure that the ministry of the Straightway Truth continues to go out to the people in the world. Brother John Reed sent me a 16-ounce, $1 trillion silver bar. 9.999, 16 ounces. Is that not a beautiful offering? Thank you, Brother John. Here's the back of it right here. And see, here we are because we have woken up. We're trying our best to teach you the people, that, hey, we know what sound money is. Now, whether you want to embrace it, receive it, and understand it or not is another story, but whether you like it or not, all empires fall, and we're going to have a reset whether you like it or not. But without further delay and further ado, and thank you, Brother Greg, got you all from today, brother, and your heartfelt sound words. I'm going to read them to the saints of the Most High here at Straightway. But I cannot do any better. I mean, really, what an epic message and performance that George has done right here to try to get the message out to us, the people, to understand what's going on. Because you got these people up here protesting, hollering and screaming democracy because they heard these prostitutes and these pundits over the news media who continually keep shocking our minds over and over and over again, training us what to say. And then we think we're functioning improperly and we think we're functioning right. And really, truthfully, you are actually functioning and behaving the same way that they have trained you to. Wake up. George does an excellent job explaining the difference between a democracy and a republic. Do you remember when we was in public school, we would say, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. I got a question. Did it say to the democracy for which it stands, or did it say to the republic for which it stands? Because there is a difference between a democracy and a republic. Give an ear and hear. Learn. Get educated. Make copies of his video. Send it out to other people so that they may learn and get educated and stop using words and terms that you're not familiar with just because you heard somebody else using it. I send a shout out to George and Miss New America Now and New America Now. Thank you for a job, an excellent job, well done. You know you got a brother here in Tennessee and a family here in Tennessee. And that's the truth, and that's the truth, Straightway.
I cringe every time someone says this is a democracy. What is a democracy? A democracy has never been a society of freedom. Freedom is not measured by the ability to vote, and voting does not and never has protected your rights. Let me repeat that for those who were not paying attention. Voting does not and never has protected your rights ever. Freedom is measured by the breadth of those things on which we do not vote. That leads to individual self-determination. A democracy is two wolves and a sheep voting on what is for lunch. Freedom is a very capable sheep contesting the choices on the menu. The problem with democracy is at some point in the future, the group will want to impose itself against you, regardless of your own self-determination. And that, my friends, is called tyranny. No matter what your politicians and modern teachers tell you, this nation is not a democracy and was intended to be a republic, fairly protecting the rights of all, even the rights of the 1%. There has never been any democracy in history, not one, that did not devolve into tyranny and oppression of the people. A republic is based on unalienable individual rights that cannot be voted on. What are unalienable rights? Unalienable means something you cannot become alienated or separated from, even if you try. A right is an expectation or entitlement of individuals to determine their own destiny as individuals and not as a society. Where do you get these unalienable rights from? Unlike civil rights that are bestowed by the civil authority and can be revoked as easily as they were given, unalienable rights come from God or nature and necessarily come from the will of man and can only be revoked upon expiration of life itself. Either way, they are part of the being of every living individual, slave and king alike. Who gets to interpret what those rights are? As we can see from our early American historical experience, it was not the lack of written individual rights, but the interpretation of those rights of one by another that is the real reason that slavery and gender repression was upheld as long as it was. Look at today's examples. The government determines where and how you can express yourself, how long you express yourself, whether your grievances are redressed, whether you can bear arms or defend yourself, define what is your privacy, where you can experience privacy, what is a reasonable search, and whether you're innocent until proven guilty by a trial or just targeted for extinction by a drone. The control is quite pervasive and untenable. In a truly free society, no one in government, not the Supreme Court or any state court for that matter, can interpret your rights for you. They are your rights. Only the individual can determine what those rights mean to him or her, given their individual expectations of what freedom is. Does society have the right to regulate your rights? The short answer is no. They do not have the right unless the rights of another are being violated. The government is only to supply an impartial stage for the people to fairly resolve disputes among themselves. In 1776, the word regulate did not mean what it has come to mean today. Regulate, historically, meant practiced, or to do something regularly in order to become proficient in its execution. The Second Amendment would have a very different interpretation if its original meaning was left intact. The intent in starting this nation was to have a capable and free people, not a controlled, dependent society. As long as the rights of others are not violated, society has no right to control the exercise of individual free will, for better or worse. Does that mean we can use or misuse our rights? With all rights comes an equal responsibility for the use or misuse of those rights. Life is about choices, good and bad, and the consequences of those choices, also good and bad. Individual lessons learned from those consequences are invaluable in the formation of the individual self. Oftentimes, the lessons learned from pain teaches us the most about ourselves. To rob an individual of such important lessons is robbing that individual of the gift of acquired wisdom. It should never be illegal to say anything, including yelling fire in a crowded theater in the absence of fire, because it is not the place of government to limit the free will of choice to do good or evil. However, those who have misused their rights and caused injury or loss to others, or infringe upon the rights of others, should be held responsible by their peers and not government for the consequences of that choice. Licenses and permits are only state tools of control and income generation and have no bearing on aptitude or safety. Did your parents need a license to cook and take care of your family? Let us keep on this path, and don't worry, they will eventually need one. Do you have rights because you're an American citizen? No. You have rights because you are alive, as does any individual, regardless of nationality. Can these rights be removed from you for society's best interest or safety? Never. No exception, no reason whatsoever, for any reason, lest we lose our individual determination and thus must fight under penalty of death to regain it after freedom has been lost. And who defends your rights? The police and the courts do not defend your rights. They defend the interest of the state and government, where they derive their power. The only one who can truly defend your rights is you. And how do I defend my rights? By any means the individual feels necessary to defend the right being violated. Only you can decide, because no one can decide for you. Although peace is preferable, violence should never be ruled out in any defensive situation and should be relegated to the choice of last resort. Remember, those that make peaceful change impossible make violent revolution inevitable. What if your government is the one violating your rights? As written by Thomas Jefferson, with the input from John Adams, Ben Franklin, and others who were incredibly learned students of history. Quote, whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government. All experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. End quote. Then you have only two choices. Live as a slave, a cared-for dependent of a despotic system, or make things incredibly bad for those who wish to enslave you and assert your right to be free. Not the best of choices, but a choice nonetheless. No one said freedom would be free. The choice is yours.